Hello all you XCOM loving cosmonauts, as always I am Cosmic, and today finally I'm going to sit down and review XCOM 2 War of the Chosen, which is the new DLC expansion for XCOM 2 brought to you by Firaxis Games and 2K. War of the Chosen adds in a buttload of new content, from new hero classes to the new resistance factions to new enemies and every minor and major improvement in between. It is packed full of content to the brim, which is reflected by its hefty $40 price tag. For DLC, it is a fairly hefty price tag, but for the amount of content that you're almost getting a full expansion, and the replayability factor within that is absolutely top notch. So in terms of the price range, it's fairly acceptable, if a little pricey. So those of you who have been long-time cosmonauts know that I'm a massive fan of the XCOM franchise. So let's get right into the content of War of the Chosen, starting with the new resistance factions. So instead of XCOM going it alone, you now have resistance factions, and there are 3 in total: the Reapers, Skirmishers and the Templars, all of which I'll get into in a moment. These factions serve as basically entities that you can cooperate with the new covert action system, whereby you send your soldiers off to complete an objective that you don't have to play through like a traditional mission, and you will get some form of reward, whether it be reduce the avatar progress, whether it be a new resistance fighter, whether it be new income, intel, supplies, all that kind of thing. And it's a really nice system to put into play that really adds a little bit of depth to the overworld map, as well as a nice deal of risk and reward. So the resistance factions themselves, first starting with the Reapers. The Reapers are a human faction that focus on stealth and sniping, and you are able to recruit Reapers. They are kick-ass as of classes go. They are an amazing class that have some really cool abilities, including a proficiency to sniping. They, instead of being in concealment, they're in shadow, so you can basically be in shadow while the rest of your squad breaks concealment, and you can run around and flank the enemy and do a load of cool stuff. But my favourite thing about the Reapers is their Claymore ability. The Claymore ability itself allows you to basically plant claymores on the ground, and then later on gaining homing mines, so you can attach from stealth a claymore to an enemy, and then once that enemy gets hit, it does an absolute ton of damage and of course shreds armor. Now next up are the Skirmishers. The Skirmishers are basically rebel advent who have taken their own cause into themselves to free their race from the Elders' control. The Skirmishers themselves are pretty cool. As a hero class, they work really well. They have a machine gun, a light machine gun, as their main weapon, and then they also have various melee abilities and excel at basically using a grappling hook, combining that with their melee abilities. So they are a very mobile and fairly good at damage dealing in terms of their overall stats, and they're a solid force on the battlefield. Last but not least is my favourite of the factions, which is the Templars. The Templars are basically psionic lovers. They come equipped with full Templar armor. They use as their weapon 2 melee swords built out of psionic energy, and their whole role is as a melee fighter, but they have a bunch of psionic abilities that you can unlock later, and they are just an absolute melee force on the battlefield. They are ridiculously kick-ass. I absolutely love them, and the fact that their leader is voiced by John Delancey makes it all the better. Now, speaking of the voice acting, the main character for the Reapers is voiced by Marina Sirtis, who is of course Deanna Troi on Star Trek. The main character for the Skirmishers is voiced by Michael Dorn, who was Worf on Star Trek Next Generation, and of course John Delancey, who was Q. So some pretty heavy Star Trek Next Generation love going on with the voice acting, and it all works very well. I have to say that one of the things I really loved about War of the Chosen was the slight tilt to a more story-driven experience in XCOM. Not completely 180 tilt. I have to say that there was some story content in there that I felt was lacking and could have been a lot of interesting, particularly when it came to the Chosen themselves. But I think overall it added some really nice content within the story aspect and the narrative aspect, and really bulked out that mid-game comparatively to vanilla XCOM 2. Now, like I said, all of the new classes within the game are fantastic. They have a really good system in place, they have tons of upgrades and abilities, and they all excel at their varying forms of combat. I was, however, a little bit disappointed that there was no complete rework for the vanilla classes of XCOM 2. I think that they could have been expanded, and there is a system whereby you can learn abilities that are not in your class, but I felt that just a complete overhaul and rework of the class system for the traditional classes would have been a really nice way to go for that. Now, alongside the Renew Resistance factions comes I would say, NPC faction that is called the Lost, and the Lost are basically zombies in XCOM 2. They almost look like the husks from Mass Effect. They are created by the chemicals and various alien technologies that have been laid waste on the outskirts of the city centres, and so they work as like a hive, and they're attracted to noise like zombies are. And so if you make a big explosion, then lost swarms can appear on specific maps. And the really nice thing about this new Lost mechanic is the fact that you have mechanics in play there whereby a single soldier is able to take out multiple Lost regardless of action points. So as long as you get a hit on a Lost and you're guaranteed to kill that Lost in terms of the damage output of your character, it will grant you a free action, meaning that a single soldier can be a total badass and take out like 6-7 Lost on a good run at any given time. So what it does is, on one hand, make you feel like the terror and panic of having like 3 Lost swarms, each having like 8 or 9 Lost within them, swarming around your group of XCOM soldiers. But at the same time, it gives you the tools to use that you can overcome those odds and, have a really action-packed, fun experience within that. But let's get on to what I think is the best addition out of the entire bunch of the expansion, which is, of course, the Chosen themselves. The Chosen are 3 siblings who have been ordained by the Eldars to recapture the Commander. And they have specific abilities, and it's also as if the developers looked at the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor and decided, hey, that would be really good in XCOM, and it basically works like that. So each one of the Chosen has specific strengths and specific weaknesses, and over time, as they try and hunt you down, they will try and disrupt your operations, they will attack, your resistance outposts, they will do a number of things, they will randomly appear on certain missions and try and take your team out. And over time, they will gain new abilities, they will gain new strengths, they will gain new weaknesses, and, the more you fight them, the more they grow and the more powerful they become. And it's a really fun system that works really, really well. Each of them has their own specific personality, they're well voice acted, and they are something that really does, like the rest of the expansion, just livens up that mid-game. It, adds a sense of tactical depth. It adds a sense of uncertainty to each mission, so you can be going into a mission thinking, well, I'm only going to face down the set enemies, but then one of the Chosen turns up and absolutely disrupts your, plan of attack and comes in and kills 2 of your XCOM soldiers, and it's just a great ride. I have to say that each of the Chosen work really well. Each of them are focused on a specific type of combat. So the Warlock, for example, focuses on psionic attacks, mind control, and basically summoning spectral soldiers. The Assassin focuses on stealth, the Hunter focuses on long range, and to be able to overcome these Chosen, you have to basically gather intel on them, find their base of operations, and then assault their stronghold. And that is no easy feat, especially on harder difficulties, because you have to go through basically the bottom of the facility, face down an absolute ton of enemies, and then you transport to the main chamber where you will face down the Chosen themselves. And so, you're coming into that that fight, sometimes in a pretty hefty weakened state, and it's just tons of fun. I have to say that I absolutely loved this addition to XCOM. It really broadens out the world in terms of its lore and really makes it a lot more varied in terms of its gameplay. Now, aside from the major content additions of the War of the Chosen, there is a ton of minor improvements, including the UI, certain reworks to stats and abilities. The feedback system has been improved, the overall structure of the base system has been improved, and it's just created a game that has been massively improved from start to finish in terms of replayability, overall usability, and enjoyment. It's just created, I would say, the best version of XCOM 2 that you could create, and it's something that has solved a lot of my gripes with the original vanilla version. It has allowed the overworld map to be a lot more filled out, and there's lots of stuff, multiple things going on at any one time. In the harder difficulties, it's become really hard. One of my favourite mods is, of course, the Long War 2 mod, and I always felt that while I loved the additions of the Long War 2 mod, it just made the game too long in some cases, and War of the Chosen really blends the two together. It takes things out that are clearly inspired by the Long War 2 mod, puts them into vanilla XCOM, and just makes the campaign just so much better and a much more enjoyable game from start to finish. And it makes the mid-game in particularly a lot more engaging and a lot more crucial to the overall success of your campaign. Overall, I am a massive fan of War of the Chosen. I think it is a great expansion, well worth the money if you can pay it. Otherwise, it's certainly definitely something you have to pick up if you're an XCOM 2 fan on sale. And for me, it's certainly something that, with the addition of all of that content, gives me a lot of hope for the future of the franchise because it's so well made, and I really hope that they do something really special with XCOM 3. So that is my review of XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, share on social media, and as always, I will see you next time.